The rain wasn't supposed to kill anyone that night, but it almost did. When a single father working two dead-end jobs pulls a drunk stranger from certain death on a rain-soaked highway, he has no idea she's the billionaire CEO who humiliated him just hours earlier. One choice. One moment. Two lives about to collide in ways neither could predict. This is a story about power, redemption, and the invisible people who change everything. Stay until the end, hit that like button, and drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from. I want to see how far this story travels. The fluorescent lights of Langford Dynamics' corporate tower hummed with the kind of sterile authority that made people feel small. Ethan Parker felt it every morning when he clocked in at 6 a.m., his work boots echoing against marble floors while executives in $1,000 shoes glided past him like he was furniture. He was 42 years old, broad-shouldered from years of physical labor, with hands that bore the permanent stains of grease and cleaning chemicals. His face carried the weathered lines of a man who'd learned to smile through exhaustion, though lately those smiles came harder. 3 years since Sarah's death, 3 years of being both mother and father to Mia, 3 years of surviving instead of living. Today started like any other impossible day. Ethan had overslept, just 15 minutes, but in his world, 15 minutes meant everything. Mia had been up half the night with a fever, and he'd stayed beside her bed, cool cloth on her forehead, whispering stories until she finally drifted off around 4 in the morning. When his alarm screamed at 5:30, his body felt like it was made of concrete. He'd rushed through their morning routine, pouring cereal, packing her lunch, checking her temperature twice, making sure she had her sketchbook for art class. She loved to draw, buildings mostly. Impossible towers reaching toward impossible skies. Sometimes he wondered if she drew them because their own apartment was so small, 3 rooms on the 4th floor of a building that smelled like old cooking oil and regret. "Dad, you're going to be late," Mia had said, her voice still hoarse from the fever. "I know, baby, but you're more important." "You always say that." "Because it's always true." He'd dropped her at school at 7:45 and hit traffic on the expressway. By the time he badged into Langford Dynamics at 8:17, he was already sweating through his maintenance uniform. The morning staff meeting had started at 8:15 sharp. Ethan slipped into the back of the conference room, trying to be invisible. 12 other maintenance workers sat in folding chairs while Victoria Langford stood at the front, her presence commanding the room like gravity. She was 40, beautiful in that sharp, unapproachable way that came from never having to ask for anything twice. Her suit probably cost more than his monthly rent. Her hair was pulled back so severely it looked painful. Her eyes, ice blue, swept across the room with the precision of a hawk scanning for prey. She was mid-sentence when she stopped. "Mr. Parker." The room went silent. Ethan's stomach dropped. "Yes, ma'am." "You're late." Not a question, an observation, a judgment. "I apologize. My daughter was—" "I don't recall asking for an explanation." Her voice was cool, measured, devastating. "This is the 3rd time this month. We have standards here. Do you understand what standards are?" Heat rushed to Ethan's face. Around him, his coworkers studied their shoes. "Yes, ma'am." "Then perhaps you should consider meeting them. Or perhaps you should consider whether this position is the right fit for you." The words landed like a slap. She held his gaze for one more excruciating second, then turned back to her presentation as if he'd ceased to exist. Ethan sat down, jaw tight, hands clenched in his lap. He'd been working at Langford Dynamics for 7 years, longer than most executives lasted. He'd never missed a shift, never complained, never asked for special treatment, but he'd been late 3 times in a month because Mia had been sick, and Victoria Langford had just threatened his livelihood in front of everyone who mattered. The rest of the meeting blurred. Something about quarterly maintenance schedules, new cleaning protocols, budget cuts. Ethan didn't hear any of it. He just kept thinking about Mia's fever, about the light bill that was due, about the fact that he couldn't afford to lose this job, not when his night shift at Sterling Office Complex barely covered groceries. When the meeting ended, everyone filed out quickly. No one made eye contact with him. No one said a word. That's how it worked when you were at the bottom. You didn't have allies. You had people who were relieved they weren't you. Marcus, a janitor who'd worked there longer than anyone, paused near Ethan's shoulder. "Don't take it personal, man," Marcus muttered. "She's like that with everyone." Doesn't make it right. No, but it makes it normal. Marcus left. Ethan stood alone in the empty conference room, staring at the chart on the screen showing profit margins climbing year after year. He wondered if Victoria Langford had any idea what it felt like to choose between paying rent and buying medicine. Probably not. People like her didn't have to make choices like that. He exhaled slowly, forcing his anger down into that quiet place where he kept all the things he couldn't afford to feel. Then he went to work. The day crawled. Ethan fixed a broken HVAC unit on the 14th floor, unclogged a sink in the executive washroom, replaced ceiling tiles in the legal department. Every task was urgent. Every task was invisible. People walked past him like he was a ghost. That's what maintenance workers were. Ghosts who kept buildings running while everyone else pretended they didn't exist. At 3:30, he clocked out and drove straight to Mia's school. She was waiting on the front steps, sketchbook open, pencil moving across the page. "How's the fever?" he asked. "Gone." She grinned up at him, missing a tooth she'd lost last week. "I drew you something." She held up the page. It was a picture of him, or what she thought he looked like. Tall, strong, wearing a cape. Behind him was a building that looked like Langford Dynamics, except in her version, it had flowers growing up the sides. "That's amazing, kiddo." "You're a superhero," she said simply. "Superheroes fix things." His chest tightened. "Yeah, I guess we do." They drove home, and Ethan made spaghetti while Mia did homework at their small kitchen table. He helped her with math, fractions that seemed designed to make both of them miserable, and then let her watch one episode of her favorite cartoon before bed. At 7:45, he kissed her forehead. "Love you, Dad." "Love you more, baby." "Not possible," he smiled. "We'll see." Then he changed into his second uniform, gray polo, black pants, and drove across the city to Sterling Office Complex, a 23-story tower downtown where he cleaned offices from 8 p.m. to midnight. The pay was garbage, but it was enough to keep the lights on. Barely. Tonight, the building was mostly empty. A few lawyers burning midnight oil. An accountant on a deadline. Ethan moved through the floors methodically, emptying trash, vacuuming carpets, wiping down desks. His body ached. His mind was numb. This was his life. This was survival. At 11:50, he clocked out. The rain started as he walked to his car. It came fast, the way storms do in late October. One moment the air was dry and cool. The next, the sky split open and water fell in cold, heavy sheets that turned the streets into rivers. Ethan's windshield wipers could barely keep up. The sedan, a '98 Honda with 200,000 miles and a prayer holding it together, coughed and wheezed through the empty streets. Mia was asleep in the back seat. He'd had to bring her to his night shift because the neighbor who usually watched her had canceled last minute. She was curled up with her sketchbook, her breathing soft and steady. Ethan glanced at her in the rearview mirror and felt that familiar ache of love and fear tangled together. He was so tired, bone-deep, soul-crushing tired. The roads were deserted. Most people had the good sense to stay home in weather like this. Lightning flickered across the sky, illuminating the city in brief, jagged bursts. Thunder followed, low and rumbling like the earth was splitting open. That's when he saw the hazard lights, blinking red, cutting through the rain near the intersection of Crestwood Boulevard and 5th. A black luxury car, something sleek and expensive, sat motionless on the shoulder, its hood reflecting the downpour like polished obsidian. Ethan's first instinct was to keep driving. It wasn't his problem. Rich people had roadside assistance. They had phones, credit cards, people they could call. They didn't need a guy in a beat-up Honda who could barely keep his own life from falling apart. But then he saw her. A woman stood beside the car, leaning against the driver's door like it was the only thing keeping her upright. She wore a silk dress, black, elegant, completely ruined by the rain, and heels that were sinking into the flooding gutter. Her hair was plastered to her face. She was fumbling with her keys, dropping them, bending down to retrieve them, swaying dangerously. Drunk, Ethan realized. Very drunk. He should have kept driving. He didn't. He pulled over, hazard lights joining hers in the storm. Mia stirred in the back seat but didn't wake. Ethan grabbed his jacket and stepped out into the rain. It hit him like a fist, cold and relentless, soaking through his clothes in seconds. "Ma'am?" he called out, jogging toward her. "You okay?" The woman didn't respond. She straightened up, keys clutched in her hand, and stepped off the curb, directly into the street. Ethan's heart stopped. Headlights exploded out of the darkness. A semi-truck, barreling down Crestwood at 50 miles an hour, horn blaring like a scream. He didn't think. He ran. His boots hit the pavement hard, water spraying up around him. He reached her just as the truck bore down, its headlights turning the rain into a wall of white. He grabbed her arm, yanked her back with all his strength, and they both stumbled onto the sidewalk as the truck roared past, horn screaming, close enough that the wind from it knocked them both to the ground. Ethan landed hard on his side, the woman crashing against him. The truck's taillights disappeared into the storm, leaving only the rain and the thunder and the sound of her ragged breathing. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then she rolled off him, gasping, shaking, and Ethan pushed himself up onto his elbows. His ribs ached. His shoulder throbbed. Rain pounded against his face. "Are you—" he started. She turned her head, and the streetlight caught her face. Ethan's breath left him. Victoria Langford, the same woman who had humiliated him 8 hours ago. The same CEO who had threatened his job in front of a room full of people. The same ice-blue eyes that had looked at him like he was nothing. Now those eyes were bloodshot, mascara streaming down her cheeks, her lips trembling. She stared at him, recognition flickering slowly through the fog of alcohol and shock. "You," she whispered. Ethan didn't know what to say. He just knelt there in the rain, breathing hard, his mind racing. She tried to stand and stumbled. He caught her before she fell again. The smell of whiskey was overwhelming, sharp and sour. She leaned against him, her weight unsteady, her breath coming in short, broken gasps. "I'm fine," she slurred. I'm fine." "You're not. Don't tell me." Her voice cracked. "Don't tell me what I am." But there was no strength behind the words. Just exhaustion. Just pain. Ethan looked back at his car. Mia was still asleep, curled up safe in the back seat. He looked at Victoria Langford, drenched, broken, shaking in his arms. He should have left her there. She deserved it, but he didn't. "Come on," he said quietly. "I'll take you home." She didn't argue. Maybe she was too drunk. Maybe she was too tired. Maybe, for the first time in years, someone had made the choice for her and she didn't have the energy to fight it. Ethan half carried her to the passenger seat of his sedan. She collapsed into it, head tilted back against the headrest, eyes closed. He shut the door carefully, then climbed into the driver's seat, soaked to the bone, hands trembling. Mia stirred. "Dad?" Her voice was sleepy, confused. "Who's that?" Ethan glanced at Victoria, who hadn't moved. "Someone who needs help," he said quietly. "Is she okay?" "She will be." Mia leaned forward, peering between the seats. "She's pretty. Go back to sleep, baby." "Okay." Mia curled back up, her sketchbook clutched to her chest. Ethan started the engine and pulled back onto the road. The rain didn't let up. If anything, it got worse. Lightning tore across the sky in jagged white scars. Thunder followed, deep and endless. "Where do you live?" he asked. Victoria didn't answer. Her eyes were still closed, her breathing shallow. "Ma'am, I need an address." Nothing. Ethan exhaled slowly. He could take her to a hospital. That would be the smart thing, the safe thing. But something told him she wouldn't thank him for it. Something told him this wasn't a night she wanted documented. So he did what any decent person would do, even if decency had never done much for him. He checked her purse, sitting open on her lap, and found her driver's license. The address was in West Haven Heights. Of course it was. The richest neighborhood in the city, where houses had gates and gardens and driveways longer than most streets. He drove. The storm raged around them, but inside the car there was only silence. Mia's soft breathing, Victoria's occasional murmur, the hum of the engine struggling against the rain. 20 minutes later, Ethan turned onto Langford Lane, because of course she lived on a street with her own name, and pulled up to a mansion that looked like something out of a magazine. Stone facade, tall windows, a fountain in the circular driveway that was still running despite the storm. He parked and looked at Victoria. She was awake now, barely, staring out the window at her own house like she didn't recognize it. "We're here," Ethan said. She nodded slowly, but didn't move. "Can you walk?" "I don't know." He He got out, came around to her side, and opened the door. She swung her legs out, and he helped her stand. She leaned heavily against him as they walked toward the front door. The rain was relentless. Thunder boomed overhead. "Keys?" Ethan asked. She fumbled in her purse and handed them to him. Her hands were shaking. He unlocked the door, and they stepped inside. The house was massive, cold, silent. Everything was white marble and glass and sharp angles. It looked like a museum, not a home. No warmth, no life, just expensive emptiness. Ethan helped her to the couch in the living room. She sank into it, head falling back, eyes closing. "Do you need water?" he asked. "Coffee?" "No." Her voice was barely a whisper. "Just go." Ethan hesitated. She looked so small on that enormous couch, so lost. For a second, he almost felt sorry for her. Then he remembered this morning, the way she'd looked at him, the way she'd made him feel. "You should sleep it off," he said quietly. She didn't respond. Ethan turned to leave, then stopped. He grabbed a blanket from the back of another couch and draped it over her. She didn't move, didn't acknowledge him. He left, locking the door behind him, and walked back to his car through the rain. Mia was awake now, watching him. "Is she going to be okay?" she asked. "Yeah," Ethan said, starting the engine. "She'll be fine." "You're a good person, Dad." He smiled, even though his chest felt tight. "Just doing what anyone would do, kiddo." But that wasn't true. Most people wouldn't have stopped. Most people wouldn't have cared. He drove them home through the storm, and by the time they reached their apartment, Mia was asleep again. He carried her up the stairs, tucked her into bed, and then stood in the shower for 20 minutes, letting the hot water wash away the rain and the cold, and the memory of Victoria Langford's broken face. Tomorrow, he thought, she would rebuild her armor. She would pretend none of this had happened. She would go back to being the woman who looked at him like he was invisible, and Ethan would go back to being invisible. That's how the world worked. He fell asleep around 2 in the morning, his alarm set for 5:30, and dreamed of rain and headlights and a woman falling into traffic. Look, he was wrong about tomorrow. When Ethan arrived at Langford Dynamics the next morning, on time, barely, he expected the usual routine. Clock in, check the work orders, disappear into the background. Instead, he found a message waiting at the front desk. "Mr. Parker, Miss Langford wants to see you in her office." Immediately, his stomach dropped. This was it. She was going to fire him. He'd saved her life, and now she was going to make sure he paid for seeing her at her weakest. That's how people like her operated. They didn't forgive. They eliminated. Ethan took the elevator to the top floor, his heart pounding. The executive suite was all glass and steel, polished to a shine that hurt to look at. Victoria's office sat at the end of a long hallway behind double doors that probably cost more than his car. He knocked. "Come in." Her voice was calm, controlled, back to normal. Ethan pushed open the door and stepped inside. Victoria Langford sat behind her desk, dressed in a charcoal suit, her hair perfect, her makeup flawless. She looked like nothing had happened, like last night was a dream, except her eyes. Her eyes were different. "Close the door," she said. Ethan did. They stood in silence for a long moment. Outside the windows, the city stretched out beneath them, steel and glass, an endless sky. "I owe you an apology," Victoria said finally. Ethan blinked. "Ma'am?" "Yesterday morning. I was out of line. I was late. You were 17 minutes late because your daughter was sick." She looked at him directly now, no ice in her gaze, just something raw, something real. "I reviewed your file last night. 7 years. Never missed a shift. Never complained. 2 jobs. Raising a child alone." She paused. "And I treated you like you were invisible." Ethan didn't know what to say. "You saved my life," she continued, her voice quieter now. "You didn't have to. You had every reason to keep driving, but you didn't. Anyone would have—" "No." The word was firm, final. "Most people wouldn't have. Most people would have decided I deserved whatever happened to me. And maybe I did." She stood, moving to the window, her back to him. "I don't remember everything from last night," she admitted. "But I remember you pulling me out of the street. I remember you bringing me home. I remember you covering me with a blanket. Her voice wavered just slightly. I don't deserve that kindness. Everyone deserves kindness, Ethan said quietly. Victoria turned, and for the first time he saw her not as a CEO, not as the woman who'd humiliated him, but as a person. Just a person. Tired, lonely, carrying something heavy. I'm giving you 2 weeks of paid leave, she said. Spend it with your daughter. Be with your family. I can't accept. It's not optional. Consider it my way of saying thank you. She returned to her desk, pulled out an envelope, and handed it to him. And this is a bonus for services rendered. Ethan opened the envelope. Inside was a check for $5,000. His hands started to shake. Ms. Langford, I can't. Yes, you can. Her voice was steady again, but something in her expression had softened. Please. Ethan stared at the check, then at her. Why? He asked. Because you reminded me that people like you exist, she said simply, and I needed that reminder. He didn't know what to say, so he just nodded. Thank you, ma'am. Victoria? She corrected. Call me Victoria. Ethan left her office in a daze, the check burning in his pocket, his mind spinning. 2 weeks with Mia. $5,000. It was more than he'd hoped for in years, but something deeper had shifted. Something neither of them fully understood yet. Because the rain had washed away more than just the dirt from the streets. It had washed away the walls between two people who thought they had nothing in common. And now, whether they liked it or not, their lives were beginning to tangle in ways neither could predict. The storm was over, but the story was just beginning. Ethan didn't cash the check right away. For 3 days, it sat on his kitchen counter beneath a coffee mug, like it might disappear if he looked at it too long. $5,000. He'd pick it up sometimes, hold it to the light, make sure it was real. Mia caught him doing it once. Dad, why do you keep staring at that paper? Because it's going to change things for us, baby. Good things? Yeah, good things. She smiled and went back to her drawing. But Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that the check wasn't just money. It was a door opening to something he didn't fully understand yet. The 2 weeks of paid leave felt like stolen time. For the first time in 3 years, Ethan woke up without the alarm screaming at 5:30. He made Mia pancakes instead of rushing through cereal. They went to the park, the library, the museum downtown where admission was free on Thursdays. She dragged him through the natural history exhibits, pointing at dinosaur bones and asking questions he couldn't answer. Why did they go extinct, Dad? Sometimes the world changes too fast and you can't keep up. She frowned, thinking about that. That's sad. Yeah, it is. But these 2 weeks, these stolen, impossible weeks, didn't feel sad. They felt like breathing after holding your breath for years. On the 5th day, Ethan finally cashed the check. He paid off 3 months of overdue rent, bought Mia new shoes, the ones with the purple laces she'd been staring at in the store window, got the car fixed properly instead of with duct tape and hope, put the rest in savings, a cushion he hadn't had since Sarah died. That night, lying in bed, he felt something he'd almost forgotten. Relief. But relief had a price. Because now, every time he thought about going back to work, he thought about Victoria Langford, about the way she'd looked at him in her office, about the softness in her voice when she said, "You reminded me that people like you exist." What did that mean? And why did it matter? The 2 weeks ended on a Sunday. Ethan spent the afternoon fixing a leaky faucet in their apartment. Mia sat on the bathroom counter, watching him work, swinging her legs. "Do you like your job?" she asked suddenly. Ethan glanced up, wrench in hand. "Why do you ask?" "Because you always look tired." He set down the wrench, wiped his hands on a rag. "It's not about liking it, kiddo. It's about taking care of us." "But what if you could do something you liked and take care of us? That's not really how the world works." "Why not?" He smiled, even though her question hurt. "Because some people get to choose what they do, and some people do what they have to." She thought about that, her face serious. "I think you should get to choose." "Maybe someday." "I hope it's soon." He kissed the top of her head. "Me too, baby. Me too." Monday morning came too fast. Ethan woke to the alarm at 5:30, the weight of routine settling back over him like a heavy coat. He dropped Mia at school, drove to Langford Dynamics, badged in at 6:45. Everything looked the same. Marble floors, fluorescent lights, people in expensive suits moving past him like he was invisible. But something had changed. Marcus found him in the maintenance closet on the third floor, restocking cleaning supplies. "Hey man, heard you got some kind of special bonus." Ethan shrugged. "Just a thank you." "For what?" "Helping someone out." Marcus studied him, eyes narrow. "That someone got a name?" "Doesn't matter." "Langford's been different lately. Heard she's launching some new employee program, single parents or something. People are saying she's gone soft." Ethan said nothing, but his chest tightened. "You know anything about that?" Marcus pressed. "No idea, man. I just fix things." Marcus didn't look convinced, but he let it go. Ethan spent the morning replacing light fixtures and unclogging drains, trying not to think about Victoria. But everywhere he went, he heard whispers. The new program, the policy changes, flexible hours, childcare subsidies, scholarships for employees' kids. It was all anyone could talk about. And Ethan knew, without being told, without confirmation, that it had started the night he pulled her out of the rain. He didn't see her for 2 weeks. Not in person, anyway. But her presence was everywhere. Memos, emails, announcements. The Parker program, they were calling it. Named after him, though his name was never mentioned directly. Just a dedicated employee who exemplifies the values we strive for. Ethan felt exposed, grateful, confused. Then, on a Thursday afternoon, his supervisor called him into the office. "Miss Langford wants to see you. 5th floor, executive conference room. 2 o'clock. Ethan's stomach dropped. Did I do something wrong? Hell if I know. But when the CEO calls, you show up. At 2 o'clock sharp, Ethan took the elevator to the 5th floor. The executive conference room was smaller than Victoria's office, but just as intimidating. Glass walls, a long table, leather chairs. Victoria sat at the head of the table, papers spread in front of her. She looked up when he entered, and for a moment neither of them spoke. "Close the door," she said. He did. "Sit." He sat. She studied him for a long moment, then pushed a folder across the table. "I need your opinion on something." Ethan blinked. "My opinion?" "You're the reason this program exists. I want to make sure it actually helps people like you." He opened the folder. Inside were proposals, budgets, testimonials from employees who'd already benefited. Single mothers getting childcare stipends, single fathers getting flexible shifts, kids getting scholarships. It was overwhelming. "This is incredible," Ethan said quietly. "Is it enough?" He looked up. Enough for what? To make a difference, to actually change lives. She leaned forward, her eyes intense. "I don't want this to be performative. I don't want it to be something we do for good press. I want it to matter." Ethan thought about Mia, about the shoes with purple laces, about the 3 months of rent he'd been behind on. "It matters," he said. "Trust me, it matters." Victoria nodded slowly, something like relief crossing her face. "Good. Then I want you to help me expand it." "Me? You know what people actually need. I don't. I've spent 20 years in boardrooms. I've forgotten what the real world looks like." She paused. "If you're willing, I'd like to hire you as a consultant, part-time. You'd still do your regular job, but a few hours a week, you'd help me refine this program, make it better." Ethan's mind raced. "I'm not qualified." "You're the most qualified person I know. You've lived it." "Why me?" "Because you stopped when no one else would have." Her voice was quiet now, almost vulnerable. "And I need someone who actually gives a damn." Ethan looked at the folder again, at the faces of people whose lives were changing because of something he'd set in motion without even realizing it. "Okay," he said. "I'll do it." Victoria smiled, really smiled, for the first time since he'd met her. "Thank you." The consulting work started small. An hour here, 2 hours there. Ethan would meet with Victoria in her office after his maintenance shift, both of them exhausted, going over proposals and policies. She asked questions. He gave answers. Slowly, the program took shape into something real, something sustainable. But the work wasn't what surprised Ethan. It was Victoria. She wasn't the woman from that first staff meeting. The ice had thawed. She listened. She laughed, not often, but when she did, it was genuine. She talked about her father sometimes, the man who'd built Langford Dynamics from nothing, the man she'd spent her whole life trying to impress. He died 3 weeks ago, she said one evening, staring out her office window at the city lights. Heart attack. Sudden. We'd had a fight that morning, about the company, about my life, about everything. Her voice went quiet. I never got to apologize. I'm sorry, Ethan said. The night you found me, I'd just come from his funeral. I didn't know how to handle it, so I drank. Stupid, I know. Grief makes us stupid sometimes. She looked at him, her eyes searching. How did you handle it when your wife died? Ethan hadn't talked about Sarah in years, but something about Victoria's openness made him want to try. I didn't handle it, he admitted. I just survived it. For Mia. She needed me to keep going, so I did. Some days that was enough. Some days it wasn't. Does it get easier? No, you just get stronger. Victoria nodded slowly, as if filing that information away. Thank you for telling me. Thank you for asking. The silence that followed wasn't uncomfortable. It was the kind of silence that happens between people who understand each other in ways they didn't expect. 3 weeks into the consulting work, Victoria asked if she could meet Mia. I'd like to see the person who inspired all this, she said, if that's okay with you. Ethan hesitated. His worlds were colliding in ways he wasn't sure he could control. But Mia had been asking about the pretty lady from the rain, and something told him this mattered more than he realized. Okay, he said, but she's 11. She's going to ask you a million questions. Victoria smiled. I'll prepare accordingly. They met on a Saturday afternoon at the park near Ethan's apartment. Victoria showed up in jeans and a simple blouse, her hair down for the first time Ethan had ever seen. She looked younger, more human. Mia spotted her immediately. Is that her? She whispered. Yeah. Be nice. I'm always nice. Victoria approached and Ethan made the introductions. Mia shook her hand solemnly, like she was meeting the president. You're the lady from the rain, Mia said. I am, Victoria replied. And you're the artist. Mia's eyes widened. How did you know? Your dad talks about you constantly. He says you draw buildings. I do. Want to see? Before Ethan could intervene, Mia had pulled out her sketchbook and was flipping through pages, explaining each drawing in exhaustive detail. Victoria listened intently, asking questions, genuinely interested. They walked through the park together, Mia between them, chattering non-stop. Victoria bought them all ice cream from a vendor. Mia got chocolate. Ethan got vanilla. Victoria got strawberry, and then admitted she'd never had ice cream from a street cart before. Never? Mia was horrified. I've lived a very boring life, Victoria said, smiling. Not anymore, Mia declared. We're going to fix that. Ethan laughed, and Victoria joined him, and for a moment it felt easy, natural, like they were just 3 people enjoying a Saturday afternoon. But reality had a way of creeping back in. As they walked back toward Ethan's car, Mia ran ahead to the playground. Victoria and Ethan stood beneath a tree, watching her climb the jungle gym. She's wonderful, Victoria said. She's my whole world. I can see that. Victoria paused. Can I ask you something? Sure. Why did you stop that night? Really? Ethan thought about it. Because it was the right thing to do. Most people don't care about the right thing. I'm not most people. Victoria looked at him, and something in her expression shifted, softened. No, you're not. Mia called out from the top of the jungle gym, waving. They waved back. I should go, Victoria said. But thank you, for today, for everything. You don't have to thank me. Yes, I do. She hesitated, then added, You're changing my life, Ethan. I hope you know that. Before he could respond, she turned and walked toward her car, a sleek black sedan parked on the street. Ethan watched her go, his chest tight with something he couldn't name. Mia climbed down and ran back to him. I like her, she announced. Yeah? She's sad, though, like you used to be. Ethan knelt down, eye level with his daughter. What do you mean? After Mom died, you were sad all the time, but you're not anymore. Not as much. She tilted her head. I think she needs someone to make her not sad.
How can I explain?
That's not really my job, kiddo.
In English,
Why not?
manhole.
You're good at fixing things.
This.
Ethan pulled her into a hug, his throat tight. Some things can't be fixed, baby. I don't believe that, Mia said into his shoulder. I think everything can be fixed if you try hard enough. He wished he had her faith. He wished the world worked the way she thought it did. But maybe, just maybe, she was right. The following week, Victoria showed up at Ethan's apartment unannounced. It was Sunday evening. Ethan was making spaghetti, again, because it was cheap and Mia loved it, when the knock came. He opened the door, and there she was, holding a bottle of wine and looking uncertain. I'm sorry, she said quickly. I should have called. I wanted to thank you properly. For the part. For everything. Ethan glanced back at the tiny kitchen, the cramped living room, the life he'd been trying to keep hidden from people like her. It's not much, he said. I don't care. He let her in. Mia was thrilled, of course. She insisted Victoria sit next to her at the small table and proceeded to tell her everything about her day, her school, her dreams of becoming an architect. Victoria listened like Mia was the most important person in the world. They ate spaghetti and drank wine. Well, the adults did. Mia had juice and talked about everything and nothing. The conversation flowed easily, naturally. Victoria told stories about growing up in a house with too many rooms and not enough warmth. Ethan talked about Sarah, about the dreams they'd had before cancer stole them away. After dinner, Mia fell asleep on the couch, sketchbook open on her lap. Ethan and Victoria stood in the kitchen, washing dishes together. It was absurdly domestic, absurdly normal. I like this, Victoria said quietly. Washing dishes? Being here. Being normal. She set down a plate, her hands trembling slightly. I don't have this. I have a mansion and a company and more money than I'll ever spend. But I don't have this.
Yes, this is ticket.
Ethan dried a glass, choosing his words carefully. You could, if you wanted it. Could I? She looked at him, her eyes searching. I don't even know what I want anymore. I spent so long chasing my father's approval that I forgot to figure out what made me happy. So figure it out now. Is it that simple? No, but it's possible. Victoria smiled, sad and hopeful at the same time. You make it sound easy. It's not, but you're stronger than you think. She held his gaze, and for a moment, the air between them shifted, charged, dangerous. Then Mia stirred on the couch, mumbling in her sleep, and the moment passed. Victoria left shortly after, thanking him again, her hand lingering on his arm just a second too long. After she was gone, Ethan stood at the window, watching her taillights disappear down the street, wondering what the hell he was doing. He was a maintenance worker, a single father barely keeping his head above water. She was a billionaire CEO with a world he'd never understand. This couldn't go anywhere. It shouldn't go anywhere. But when he climbed into bed that night, he couldn't stop thinking about the way she'd looked at him in the kitchen, the way her voice had softened when she said, I don't have this. Maybe some things couldn't be fixed, but maybe some things could be built from scratch. Basit. Over the next month, Victoria became a regular presence in their lives. She started showing up at the park on Saturdays. At first, Ethan thought it was coincidence, but after the third week, he realized she was coming on purpose. She'd bring coffee for him, hot chocolate for Mia, and they'd walk the trails together, talking about everything and nothing. One Saturday, she brought painting supplies. I thought Mia might like to try something new, she explained, setting up easels near the pond. Mia was ecstatic. She painted flowers and birds and buildings with crooked windows. Victoria painted too, badly, she admitted with a laugh. But she didn't care. She was terrible at it, and she loved it. I haven't done anything this pointless in years, she said, staring at her lopsided tree. It's not pointless, Ethan said. It's just for you. That's allowed. She looked at him, something vulnerable in her eyes. I'm not used to things being just for me. Maybe you should be. Another Saturday, she showed up with tools. I want to learn, she announced. Learn what? Whatever you do. Fixing things, building things. I want to know how it works. So Ethan taught her. He showed her how to change a tire, how to fix a leaky faucet, how to wire a light switch. She was clumsy at first, dropping wrenches and swearing when she skinned her knuckles, but she kept trying. "Why are you doing this?" he asked one afternoon, watching her wrestle with a stubborn bolt. "Because I've spent my whole life managing things I don't understand," she said. "I want to understand something real for once." She got the bolt loose and grinned like she'd won a prize. Ethan's chest tightened. This was dangerous. He knew it. She knew it. But neither of them could seem to stop. A bottle of wine, something expensive that Ethan couldn't pronounce. And they talked about the program, about the families it was helping, about the future. Then Victoria had gone quiet, staring into her glass. "What's wrong?" Ethan asked. "Nothing. Everything." She set down the glass. "Do you ever feel like you're living someone else's life?" "What do you mean?" "I'm 40 years old, Ethan. I run a company worth billions. I have everything anyone could want." Her voice cracked slightly. "But I don't have anyone who actually knows me. Not really." Ethan didn't know what to say. "The night you found me," she continued, "I wasn't just drunk. I was drowning. I'd spent my whole life trying to be what my father wanted. And when he died, I realized I didn't know who I was without him." She looked at Ethan, and her eyes were shining. "But then you showed up, and you didn't see the CEO or the money or the reputation. You just saw someone who needed help, and that changed everything." "Victoria, I'm falling for you," she said quietly. "I know I shouldn't. I know it doesn't make sense, but I can't help it." The words hung in the air between them. Ethan's heart pounded. He should have said no, should have walked away, should have protected himself and Mia from a world they didn't belong in, but he didn't. "I'm falling for you too," he admitted. Victoria crossed the room in 3 steps and kissed him. It was soft at first, tentative, like they were both testing the waters. Then it deepened, months of tension finally breaking free. Ethan's hands found her waist. Her fingers tangled in his hair. The world outside the windows disappeared. When they finally pulled apart, both of them were breathing hard. "This is insane," Victoria whispered. "I know. It won't be easy." "I know that too." She smiled, and it was the most genuine smile he'd ever seen on her face. "But maybe it's worth it." Maybe. They stood there, foreheads touching, hearts racing, knowing they'd just crossed a line they couldn't uncross. And neither of them cared. Because sometimes love doesn't make sense. Sometimes it doesn't follow the rules. Sometimes it just happens, messy and complicated and impossible. But real. They kept it quiet at first. Not because they were ashamed, but because the world wasn't ready for a story like theirs. A billionaire CEO and a maintenance worker. It sounded like a fairy tale, and fairy tales didn't survive in boardrooms and break rooms where people watched every move, looking for weakness. So they were careful. Victoria would text him late at night, after Mia was asleep, and they'd talk for hours about everything. Her fears about the company, his worries about being a good father, the strange new territory they were navigating together. During the day at Langford Dynamics, they maintained their professional distance. She was still Ms. Langford. He was still Parker from maintenance. But the space between them had changed, charged, electric. Marcus noticed first. "You're different, man," he said one morning while they were replacing air filters on the 9th floor. Ethan kept his eyes on his work. "Different how?" "I don't know. Lighter, maybe, like you're not carrying the whole world anymore." "Just getting more sleep," Marcus snorted. "Right, sleep. That why you've been smiling at your phone like a teenager?" Ethan's face heated. "Mind your own business. Just saying. Whatever it is, it looks good on you." Ethan didn't respond, but later that day, when his phone buzzed with a message from Victoria, "Thinking about you," he couldn't help but smile. The truth was, he felt lighter. For the first time since Sarah died, he felt like something good might actually be possible. Not just survival, but actually living. The weight hadn't disappeared, but someone else was helping him carry it now. And that made all the difference. 3 weeks after that first kiss, Victoria invited him and Mia to dinner at her house. A real dinner, she'd said. Not takeout or spaghetti, something she'd cook herself. "You cook?" Ethan had asked, surprised. "I'm about to find out." Mia was thrilled when he told her. She insisted on bringing flowers from the corner store, a small bouquet of daisies that cost $4 but looked like $1 million in her hands. "Are you and Victoria dating?" Mia asked as they drove toward West Haven Heights. Ethan's hands tightened on the steering wheel. Why do you ask? Because you look at her the way you used to look at Mom. His throat closed. Is that okay with you? Mia thought about it seriously. Mom would want you to be happy, and Victoria makes you happy, so yeah, it's okay. Ethan blinked back the sudden burn in his eyes. When did you get so smart? I've always been smart, Dad. You just don't notice because I'm short. He laughed, and the tension in his chest eased. Victoria's mansion looked different this time, less intimidating. Warm light glowed from the windows. Music drifted from inside, something soft and jazzy. When she opened the door, she was wearing jeans and an apron covered in flour. Fair warning, she said, accepting the daisies from Mia with genuine delight. I might have bitten off more than I can chew. The kitchen was a disaster, pots everywhere, ingredients scattered across the marble counters, something smoking slightly in the oven. What are you making? Ethan asked, trying not to laugh. Chicken parmesan, or at least that was the plan. She pulled open the oven door and smoke billowed out. I think I murdered it, Mia giggled. Ethan couldn't help but grin. Okay, he said, rolling up his sleeves. Let me help. Together, they salvaged dinner. Ethan showed Victoria how to properly bread the chicken, how to know when oil was hot enough, how to layer the cheese without turning it into a molten mess. Mia set the table with elaborate care, folding napkins into shapes she'd learned from a YouTube video. By the time they sat down to eat, the food was actually decent. Not perfect, but honest, made with effort and care. This is the best meal I've ever cooked, Victoria declared. That's because Dad helped, Mia pointed out. Fair point. But they ate and talked and laughed, and for a few hours the absurdity of their situation didn't matter. They were just three people sharing a meal, building something fragile and new. After dinner, Mia fell asleep on Victoria's couch, again, curled up with a book about famous architects. Ethan carried her to the car, but Victoria stopped him before he could leave. Stay, she said softly. Just for a little while. They sat on the back patio, overlooking a garden that Victoria admitted she'd never actually spent time in. The night was cool, stars barely visible through the city's light pollution. Victoria leaned against him, her head on his shoulder, and they didn't talk. They just existed together in the quiet. I never thought I could have this, Victoria said eventually. Have what? Peace. Simplicity. Someone who doesn't want anything from me except me. Ethan kissed the top of her head. You deserve it. Do I? Yeah, you do. She turned to look at him, her eyes reflecting the garden lights. I love you, Ethan. I know it's fast. I know it's crazy. But I do. His heart stuttered. The words should have scared him. Instead, they felt inevitable. I love you too. They kissed under the stars, and the world felt impossibly small and impossibly big at the same time. But reality was waiting. It always was. The announcement came 2 months later. Victoria called a company-wide meeting to officially launch the Parker program. The auditorium was packed. Employees from every department, local press, even a few city officials. Ethan stood in the back, uncomfortable in a borrowed sport coat, trying to blend into the crowd. Victoria took the stage, poised and powerful, every inch the CEO. She spoke about corporate responsibility, about investing in people, about creating lasting change. Then she did something Ethan didn't expect. This program exists because of one man, she said, her voice carrying across the room. A man who showed me what true character looks like, who reminded me that kindness isn't weakness, it's strength. He's here today, and while he'd probably prefer to remain anonymous, I think he deserves recognition. She looked directly at him. Ethan Parker, would you come up here, please? Ethan's stomach dropped. Every head in the auditorium turned. Cameras swiveled. People whispered. He wanted to run, but Mia was in the third row, beaming at him with pride, and Victoria was waiting with that soft smile that made him forget how to breathe. So he walked down the aisle, every step feeling like a mile, until he stood beside her on stage. Ladies and gentlemen, Victoria said, her hand finding his, this is the man who saved my life, and in doing so changed all of ours. The applause was deafening. Ethan stood there, face burning, while cameras flashed and people stood. Victoria squeezed his hand, grounding him. When the noise finally died down, she turned to him. "Do you want to say anything?" He hadn't prepared a speech, hadn't expected this. But looking out at the crowd, at the single mothers and fathers whose lives would change because of this program, he knew what to say. "I'm just a guy who did what anyone should do," he said, his voice rough. "Help someone when they need it. The real heroes are the people this program will support. The parents working 2 jobs, the kids dreaming bigger than their circumstances. They're the ones who matter." More applause. Victoria's eyes were shining, but not everyone was applauding. In the front row, Richard Caldwell, Victoria's senior vice president and her father's old protege, sat with his arms crossed, his expression cold. Ethan had seen him around the building, always watching, always calculating. He didn't look happy now. After the ceremony, people swarmed Ethan. Handshakes. Congratulations. Photos. It was overwhelming. He finally escaped to the parking garage, needing air, needing space. He'd just reached his car when footsteps echoed behind him. That was quite a performance. Ethan turned. Richard Caldwell stood 10 feet away, expensive suit, expensive watch, expensive sneer. "I'm sorry?" Ethan said. "Don't play dumb. I know what you're doing." "I'm not doing anything." Richard stepped closer. He was shorter than Ethan, but carried himself like he owned the world. "You think I don't see it? The way she looks at you, the way you've wormed your way into her life, into her company." Ethan's jaw tightened. "That's not what this is." "Isn't it? Poor single dad saves the rich CEO, plays the hero, gets the girl and the money. It's pathetic." "You don't know what you're talking about." "I know exactly what I'm talking about. Victoria's father built this company from nothing. He trusted me to help her run it, and now she's distracted by some maintenance worker playing white knight. I never asked for any of this." "No, you just took it anyway." Richard's smile was cruel. "Here's the thing, Parker. You don't belong in her world. You never will. And eventually, she'll figure that out. The novelty will wear off, and she'll realize you're just a project, a charity case." The words hit like punches, not because they were true, but because they echoed the fears Ethan had been trying to ignore. "Stay away from her," Richard said, "or I'll make your life very difficult." He walked away, leaving Ethan standing alone in the parking garage, his chest tight with anger and doubt. That night, Ethan couldn't sleep. He lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, Richard's words playing on repeat. "You don't belong in her world. Just a charity case. The novelty will wear off." His phone buzzed. "Victoria, are you awake?" He stared at the message, thumb hovering over the keyboard. He should tell her about Richard, about the threats, about the poison that man had planted in his mind. Instead, he wrote, "Yeah, you okay?" "Better now. Today was amazing. You were amazing." "I didn't do anything." "You did everything. I'm so proud of you." His throat tightened. "Can I see you tomorrow?" "You can see me right now if you want." He smiled despite himself. "It's 1 a.m. So? So Mia's asleep and I can't just leave her. Then I'll come to you. I'll bring coffee." "Victoria, please, I need to see you." 20 minutes later, she was at his door, wearing sweatpants and a hoodie, holding 2 cups of coffee from the 24-hour diner. She looked beautiful, real, his. They sat on his tiny balcony, shoulders touching, drinking coffee, and watching the city sleep. "Richard cornered me tonight," Ethan said quietly. Victoria stiffened. "What did he say?" "That I don't belong, that you'll get bored, that I'm just a project." "He's wrong." "Is he?" Victoria set down her coffee and turned to face him. "Listen to me. Richard is a snake. He's been trying to control this company since my father died. He hates that I'm making decisions without him. He hates that you make me happy." "But what if he's right? What if—" "No." Her voice was firm. "Don't let him get in your head. I love you, Ethan. Not because you're a project. Not because you saved my life, but because you're you. Because you're kind and real and you make me want to be better. Your world and mine, they're so different. So what? We'll build a new one together." She kissed him, and for a moment the doubt receded, but it didn't disappear. Over the next few weeks, the pressure mounted. Richard started spreading rumors. Carefully, quietly, so they couldn't be traced back to him. Whispers in boardrooms. questions about Victoria's judgment, concerns about the optics of her relationship with an employee. The board started asking questions. Investors grew nervous. The press, always hungry for scandal, began digging. Victoria handled it with grace, deflecting questions, maintaining her composure. But Ethan could see the strain, the late nights, the tension in her shoulders, the way she'd stare at her phone reading messages that made her face go pale. "Maybe we should cool things off," Ethan suggested one evening, "just until the heat dies down." "Absolutely not. Victoria, this is affecting the company, affecting you." "I don't care." "You should care. This is your life's work." She grabbed his hands, her eyes fierce. "You are my life now, too. I'm not losing you because some old men in suits are uncomfortable. But what if it costs you everything? Then I'll build something new. With you." Her faith in them was absolute, unshakable. It terrified him. Because Ethan knew how the world worked. He knew that people like him didn't get fairy tale endings. He knew that eventually the gap between their worlds would become too wide to bridge, and he didn't know if love would be enough. The breaking point came on a Tuesday. Ethan was at work, fixing a broken elevator on the 7th floor, when his phone rang. Unknown number. "Hello? Mr. Parker? This is Jennifer Ashford from the National Chronicle. I'd like to ask you a few questions about your relationship with Victoria Langford." His blood went cold. "No comment." "We've heard reports that you two are romantically involved. Can you confirm?" "No comment." "How does it feel dating someone worth billions when you work a minimum wage job?" "It's not minimum wage," he said tightly. "Close enough, though, right? Some people are saying you're using her for money. What's your response to that?" Ethan hung up. His hands were shaking. He called Victoria immediately. "The press knows," he said. He heard her sharp intake of breath. "I'll handle it." "How?" "I don't know yet, but I will." That night, the story broke. Billionaire CEO's secret romance with employee. The headlines were brutal. Photos of them at the park, at her house. Speculation about how they'd met. Quotes from anonymous sources. Richard, Ethan was sure, questioning Victoria's judgment. Ethan read the articles on his phone, his stomach churning. They made him sound like a gold digger, a con artist, someone who'd manipulated a vulnerable woman for personal gain. Mia saw him reading and climbed onto the couch beside him. "Are people being mean?" she asked. "Yeah, baby, they are." "About you and Victoria?" He nodded. "That's stupid. You love each other. That's all that matters." If only the world worked that way. Victoria called an emergency board meeting. Ethan wasn't there, but she told him about it later, her voice tight with anger. "Richard proposed a vote of no confidence," she said. "He's trying to remove me as CEO." "Can he do that?" "If he gets enough board support, yes. He's arguing that my relationship with you shows poor judgment, that I'm distracted, unfit to lead." Ethan felt sick. "This is my fault." "This is Richard's fault. He's been waiting for an excuse to take power." "Victoria, if staying with me costs you the company..." "Don't!" Her voice cracked. "Don't say it." "I have to. You've worked too hard, sacrificed too much. I can't be the reason you lose everything." "You're not. Richard is." "But if I wasn't in the picture, if you weren't in the picture, I'd still be drowning. I'd still be the woman who almost walked into traffic because she couldn't handle her grief." She was crying now, he realized. Actually, crying. "You saved me, Ethan. In every way a person can be saved. I'm not giving that up. Even if it means losing Langford Dynamics?" The silence stretched. "I don't know," she finally whispered. That was the moment Ethan knew what he had to do. The next morning, he requested a meeting with Victoria. She was surprised. They usually kept their professional and personal lives separate at the office. But she agreed. When he walked into her office, she was standing by the window, staring out at the city. She looked exhausted, beautiful and exhausted. "I got a job offer," Ethan said without preamble. She turned, confused. "What?" "Morrison Industries. They heard about the Parker program. They want to hire me to develop something similar for them. It's in Denver. Better pay, better benefits. A real future for Mia." Victoria's face went pale. "When did this happen?" "Last week. I've been thinking about it." And you're just telling me now? Because I knew what you'd say. I'd say don't go. She crossed the room, her eyes desperate. I'd say we'll figure this out. I'd say I love you, and I need you, and we can survive this together. Can we? Ethan asked quietly. Really? Because every day the pressure gets worse. The board, the press. Richard, how long before it breaks you? I'm stronger than you think. I know you are, but you shouldn't have to be. Not because of me. Tears were streaming down her face now. So what are you saying? I'm saying maybe the right thing is for me to step back, take the job, give you space to save your company. I don't want space. I want you. I want you too. But Mia deserves stability, a real future, and you deserve to keep the legacy your father built. Victoria wrapped her arms around herself like she was trying to hold the pieces together. This isn't fair. No, it's not. I love you. I love you too. That's why I have to go. She looked at him, and the devastation in her eyes nearly broke him. When? She whispered. 2 weeks. That's not enough time. It would never be enough time. Victoria closed the distance between them and kissed him. It was desperate, heartbroken, full of everything they couldn't say. When they finally pulled apart, both of them were crying. I'll never forget you, she said. I'll never forget you either. It was the truth. But truth didn't make it hurt any less. The next 2 weeks were agony. Ethan worked his shifts, packed his apartment, prepared Mia for the move. She was excited about Denver, about the mountains and the new school, but she also asked about Victoria constantly. Will we still see her? Mia wanted to know. I don't think so, baby. But you love her. Sometimes love isn't enough. That's the saddest thing I've ever heard. Yeah, Ethan thought. It really was. Victoria came to see them one last time the night before they left. She brought gifts, a new sketchbook for Mia, a watch for Ethan that he knew cost more than his car. They sat in his empty apartment surrounded by boxes and tried to pretend this wasn't goodbye. Denver's not that far, Victoria said, her voice too bright. I could visit. We could… Victoria. She stopped, and her composure crumbled. I don't know how to do this. Me neither. Mia had fallen asleep on the air mattress in the corner. Victoria looked at her, then back at Ethan. Promise me something, she said. Anything. Promise me you'll be happy, that you'll build a good life, that you won't regret this. Ethan pulled her into his arms, holding her tight. I could never regret loving you. But you're still leaving. Because I love you. She cried into his shoulder, and he cried too, and they held each other until the sun started to rise. When she finally left, she didn't look back. Ethan watched from the window as her car pulled away, taillights disappearing into the morning light. And just like that, it was over. The drive to Denver took 2 days. Mia chattered about their new apartment, about the mountains, about starting fresh. Ethan listened and smiled and tried not to think about blue eyes and soft hands and the smell of Victoria's perfume. But at night, in cheap motel rooms while Mia slept, he'd stare at his phone, at the pictures they'd taken, at the messages they'd sent. Victoria texted him once, 3 days after they arrived. I hope you're settling in. I hope you're okay. I'm not, but I will be, because you taught me how to be strong. Thank you for everything. Ethan stared at the message for a long time before responding. You taught me too. Take care of yourself, Victoria. You deserve everything good. He almost added, I love you. He didn't, because some doors, once closed, needed to stay that way. Even if it killed you to leave them shut. Denver was supposed to be a fresh start. Ethan told himself that every morning when he woke up in their new apartment, sunlight streaming through windows that faced the Rockies. He told himself that when he dropped Mia off at her new school, where she'd already made friends and joined the art club. He told himself that when he went to work at Morrison Industries, where people respected him, where his ideas mattered, where he had an actual office with his name on the door. He told himself that, and some days he almost believed it. But at night, alone in his room after Mia went to sleep, the lie fell apart. Because fresh starts were supposed to erase the past, and Ethan couldn't erase Victoria. She was in every song on the radio, every cup of coffee, every moment of unexpected kindness. She was a constant ache beneath his ribs, familiar and unrelenting. He didn't call her, didn't text except for that one message. Clean breaks were supposed to heal faster. That's what he told himself anyway. Morrison Industries was everything they'd promised. The pay was nearly triple what he'd made at Langford Dynamics. The benefits included full health care, a retirement plan, and a scholarship fund for Mia. His job was to build an employee assistance program from the ground up, similar to what Victoria had created. They'd given him a team, a budget, and complete creative control. It should have been a dream, but every proposal he wrote, every policy he designed, he thought about her. About the late nights in her office, refining ideas over wine and Chinese takeout. About the way she'd light up when they found a solution that would actually help people. About how she'd made him believe his voice mattered. 6 weeks into the job, his supervisor called him in for a review. "Ethan, your work is exceptional," Karen Mitchell said. She was in her 50s, sharp and fair, the kind of boss who actually listened. "The program you're building is going to change lives here. But I need to ask, are you happy?" The question caught him off guard. "I'm grateful for the opportunity." "That's not what I asked." Ethan looked down at his hands, at the calluses that were starting to fade now that he wasn't doing manual labor anymore. "I'm adjusting." "You left someone behind, didn't you?" His head snapped up. "How did you—" "I've been doing this a long time. I recognize heartbreak when I see it." She leaned back in her chair, her expression kind. "Look, I'm not going to pry, but whatever you're running from, make sure you're not running from the wrong thing." It wasn't the wrong thing. It was the right thing. For who? Ethan didn't have an answer. That night, he came home to find Mia at the kitchen table, surrounded by drawings. She'd been sketching more since they moved, filling page after page with buildings and landscapes. But tonight, she was drawing something different. A woman with long hair and sad eyes, standing in front of a tall building. "Is that Victoria?" Ethan asked quietly. Mia nodded without looking up. "I miss her." "Yeah, me too." "Then why can't we see her?" "Because sometimes people are in different places in their lives. Sometimes the timing's wrong." "That's stupid." "Yeah, it is." Mia set down her pencil and looked at him. "Do you think she misses us?" Ethan's throat tightened. "I know she does." "Then maybe we should tell her. Maybe she needs to hear it. It's not that simple, baby." "Why not?" "You always tell me that if I care about someone, I should let them know. That I shouldn't wait until it's too late." The words hit him like a physical blow. Because she was right. He'd raised her to be brave, to speak her truth, to not let fear make her decisions. And here he was, doing the exact opposite. "You're too smart for your own good, you know that?" he said. "I get it from you." He pulled her into a hug, this fierce, brilliant girl who kept teaching him how to be better. "How about this?" he said. "How about you write her a letter? Tell her what you want to say. And we'll mail it. Will you write one too?" "I'll think about it." "That's a no. That's a maybe." Mia spent the next hour crafting her letter, her tongue sticking out in concentration, the way it always did when she was focused. Ethan watched her, his heart full and breaking at the same time. When she finished, she handed it to him to read. "Dear Victoria," it began, "I miss you. Dad misses you too, even though he won't say it. We're in Denver now, and it's nice, but it's not the same without you. I hope you're not too sad. I hope you're still learning how to fix things and eating ice cream from street carts. I drew you a picture. It's you and Dad and me standing in front of a building with flowers growing on it, because you help things grow. Love, Mia." Ethan had to set the letter down because his vision had gone blurry. "It's good, right?" Mia asked nervously. "It's perfect." They mailed it the next day. Ethan didn't write his own letter, but he thought about it, about what he'd say if he could find the words, about whether words could bridge the distance between who they'd been and who they were now. 2 weeks later, a package arrived. Mia tore into it with the kind of excitement only an 11-year-old could muster. Inside was a sketchbook, professional grade, the kind real artists used, and a set of colored pencils that probably cost more than their weekly grocery budget. There was also a framed photo. Victoria, Ethan, and Mia at the park, all three of them laughing at something Mia had said. Ethan didn't even remember someone taking the picture, and there was a letter. "Dear Mia," Victoria had written, "thank you for your beautiful letter and your beautiful drawing. It's hanging in my office where I can see it every day. I miss you both more than words can say. You're right. Things aren't the same without you. But knowing that you're both happy and safe makes everything a little easier. Keep drawing. Keep dreaming and tell your dad that he was right about me being stronger than I thought. I'm proving it every day. All my love, Victoria. At the bottom, in smaller handwriting, she'd added, Ethan, I hope you're finding what you're looking for. You deserve everything good. Always, V. Ethan read the letter 3 times, then folded it carefully and put it in his wallet, where it would stay for the next month. Some nights, when the loneliness got too heavy, he'd take it out and read it again, just to remember that what they'd had was real. Meanwhile, back in the city they'd left behind, Victoria was fighting her own battles. The board meeting Richard had called went exactly as expected. He'd laid out his case methodically, professionally, arguing that Victoria's judgment had been compromised, that her personal life was affecting her professional decisions, that the company needed steady leadership, not distraction. Victoria had defended herself with equal precision. She'd presented quarterly reports showing record profits, employee satisfaction surveys that were the highest they'd been in a decade, documentation of the Parker program's success, including testimonials from families whose lives had changed because of it. But Richard had played his trump card. The program itself is admirable, he'd said, his voice smooth as silk. But it was born from personal feelings, not business strategy. What happens when the next crisis comes and Miss Langford is too distracted by matters of the heart to handle it effectively? The board hadn't voted to remove her. Not yet. But they'd issued a warning. Get your personal life under control, or we'll be forced to reconsider your position. Victoria had walked out of that meeting with her head high and her composure intact. Then she'd gone to her office, closed the door, and cried for the first time since Ethan left. She'd lost him to save the company. And now the company was being used as a weapon against her anyway. The irony was almost funny. Almost. But Victoria Langford hadn't built her career by giving up when things got hard. So she did what she'd always done. She worked. She strategized. She made Richard's life as difficult as he'd made hers, blocking his initiatives, questioning his budgets, reminding the board at every opportunity that she was her father's daughter and this company was in her blood. And slowly, grudgingly, she started to win. The Parker program expanded nationwide. Other companies started copying it, which meant Langford Dynamics had set the standard. Employee retention rates climbed. Recruitment became easier. The company's reputation shifted from cold corporate machine to industry leader in worker support. The press that had been so cruel about her relationship with Ethan started writing different stories. Langford transforms corporate culture. CEO puts people first. How one woman changed everything. Victoria read the articles with a bitter sort of satisfaction. They were praising her for the very thing they'd crucified her for months earlier. But success didn't fill the empty space Ethan had left behind. She threw herself into the work, staying late at the office, attending every meeting, reviewing every report. Her assistant started leaving dinner on her desk because Victoria would forget to eat. Her friends, the few she had, stopped calling because she never answered. One night, 3 months after Ethan left, she found herself standing in her empty mansion, staring at the photo Mia had drawn, the building with flowers growing up its sides, the 3 of them standing together. She picked up her phone and typed out a message to Ethan. "I'm sorry I let you go. I should have fought harder. I should have..." She deleted it, typed again. "I miss you every day, Deleted it. "Are you happy? I hope you're..." Deleted it. Finally, she set the phone down without sending anything. Because what was the point? He'd made his choice. She'd made hers. They'd both done what they thought was right, even if it felt like dying. The turning point came in early December. Morrison Industries flew Ethan to a national conference on workplace innovation in Chicago. His program had become a model for other companies, and they wanted him to present on a panel. It was a huge opportunity, the kind of professional validation he'd never imagined. He was backstage reviewing his notes when he heard her voice. "Thank you all for being here. I'm honored to keynote this year's conference." Ethan's head snapped up. He walked to the side of the stage where he could see without being seen. Victoria stood at the podium, poised and powerful, addressing a room of hundreds. She looked thinner than he remembered, tired, but still beautiful. Still her. His chest constricted so violently he had to grip the wall for support. "Corporate responsibility isn't just about profit margins," Victoria was saying. "It's about recognizing that the people who make our companies run are human beings with lives, families, struggles. When we support them, we don't just build better businesses. We build better communities. She was talking about the Parker program, about everything they'd built together, and she was doing it without him. Ethan watched the entire keynote, hidden in the shadows, his heart pounding. When it ended and she walked off stage, she passed within 10 feet of him. He could have called out, could have stopped her. He didn't. Because what would he say? That he'd made a mistake, that leaving her was the worst decision of his life? That he thought about her every single day and it was killing him? She disappeared down the corridor, surrounded by people wanting her time, her attention, her brilliance. And Ethan stood there, frozen, wondering if he'd just made his second worst decision. His panel went well. He talked about implementation strategies, about measuring success, about the importance of listening to the people you're trying to help. People applauded, exchanged business cards, told him he was doing important work. But all he could think about was Victoria, somewhere in this massive conference center, close enough to touch but impossibly far away. That night, unable to sleep in his hotel room, he did something reckless. He texted her, "I saw your keynote today. You were incredible. You're changing the world. I'm proud of you." He hit send before he could overthink it, then immediately regretted it. It was past midnight. She was probably asleep. She probably wouldn't even... His phone buzzed. "You're here? In Chicago?" His heart stopped. "Yeah, Morrison sent me for the conference. Can we talk, please?" Ethan stared at the message. This was dangerous. This was why he'd stayed away, because talking to her would undo every bit of healing he'd managed. But he typed anyway. "Where?" "Hotel bar. 20 minutes." He should have said no. Should have protected himself, protected her, protected the careful distance they'd built. Instead, he got dressed and went downstairs. The hotel bar was dimly lit, mostly empty at 1 a.m. Victoria sat in a corner booth wearing jeans and a sweater, her hair down. She looked up when he walked in, and the expression on her face nearly broke him. "Hi," she said softly. "Hi." He slid into the booth across from her, maintaining the distance, maintaining control. A waitress appeared and they both ordered whiskey. Neither of them touched it when it arrived. "You look good," Victoria said. "So do you." "Liar. I look exhausted." "Okay, you look exhausted, but still good." A ghost of a smile crossed her face. "How's Mia?" "She's great, thriving. She asks about you constantly." "I loved her letter, and the drawing. It's in my office." "She'll be happy to hear that." They fell into silence, the weight of everything unsaid pressing down on them. "I hate this," Victoria finally whispered. "I hate being polite. I hate pretending I'm fine. I hate that you're sitting 3 feet away and I can't touch you." "Victoria, I know. I know we made the right choice. I know you needed to build your life and I needed to save the company. I know all the logical reasons why we did what we did." She looked at him, her eyes shining. "But I still hate it." Ethan's hands clenched on the table. "You think I don't? You think this has been easy for me? Then why did you leave? Because you were losing everything. Because Richard was going to destroy you and I couldn't watch that happen. I didn't need you to save me, Ethan. I needed you to stay. I couldn't. Not when it meant watching you sacrifice everything you'd built. And what about what we were building?" The question hung in the air between them, unanswerable. Victoria pressed her hands to her face, breathing hard. When she lowered them, her makeup was smudged, her composure cracked. "Did you ever regret it?" she asked. "Leaving?" Ethan could have lied, should have lied. Instead, he told the truth. Every single day. Something broke in her expression. "Then why didn't you come back?" "Because nothing's changed. You're still the CEO of a billion-dollar company. I'm still me. Richard's still poisoning the board against you. The press is still watching. What would be different? We would be different. We'd know what we're fighting for." "And what happens when it gets hard again? When the board issues another ultimatum? Then we fight harder." Victoria leaned forward, her voice fierce. "I've spent 4 months without you, Ethan. 4 months proving I can run this company alone, that I'm strong enough, that I don't need anyone. And you know what I learned?" "What?" "That being strong and being alone aren't the same thing. That I can be a good CEO and still deserve happiness. That loving you didn't make me weak. It made me braver than I've ever been. Ethan's throat closed. Victoria, I handled Richard. I reorganized the board. I expanded the Parker program to 15 states. I did all of that without you, and I'm proud of it. But I don't want to keep doing it without you. She reached across the table, her hand stopping just short of his. I love you. I never stopped. And if you tell me you don't feel the same anymore, I'll walk away and never bring it up again. But if there's any chance at all, that we could try again, I need to know. Ethan looked at her hand so close to his, at her face, vulnerable and hopeful and terrified, at the future branching out before them in two directions, one safe and separate, one terrifying and together. I'm in Denver, he said quietly. My life is there now. Mia's settled. My job, I know I'm not asking you to give that up. I'm asking if there's room in that life for me. Even if it's complicated, even if it's long distance, even if we have to figure it out as we go. You hate complications. I hate being without you more. Ethan closed his eyes, fighting the war raging inside him. Logic versus longing, fear versus faith, the safe choice versus the right one. When he opened them, Victoria was watching him with an expression that said she already knew his answer. If we do this, he said slowly, things have to be different. No more hiding, no more pretending. If we're together, publicly, completely. Okay? I won't be your dirty secret or your charity case. I'm a package deal with an 11-year-old who comes first, always. I wouldn't have it any other way. And if the board tries to force you to choose again, they won't, because I already did. Victoria's voice was steady now, certain. I choose you, I choose us. I choose happiness over approval. And if that costs me Langford Dynamics, then I'll build something else. You'd give up the company? I'd give up anything except you. The words settled into Ethan's chest, warm and solid and real. This woman who'd had everything, who'd built an empire, who could have anyone. She was choosing him, not despite who he was, but because of it. He reached across the table and took her hand. I love you, he said. I never stopped either. Victoria's face crumpled with relief. She came around the table and slid into the booth beside him, and he pulled her into his arms. She fit there perfectly, like coming home. We're really doing this? She whispered against his shoulder. Yeah, we're really doing this. It's going to be messy. I know. People are going to talk. Let them. Richard's going to lose his mind. Good. She laughed, the sound watery and beautiful. Then she pulled back just enough to kiss him, and it was like oxygen after drowning, like light after darkness, like every cliché he'd ever rolled his eyes at, except it was real and it was theirs. When they finally broke apart, both of them were crying and laughing at the same time. So what now? Victoria asked. Now we figure it out, together. Long distance? For now, until we can figure out something permanent. I'll come to Denver every weekend I can. You'll come to the city when Mia's schedule allows. We'll make it work. And when people ask questions, Victoria smiled, fierce and free. We tell them the truth, that I fell in love with a man who saved my life in every way that matters, and that I'm done apologizing for it. They stayed in that booth until the bar closed, holding hands, making plans, rebuilding the bridge between them brick by careful brick. It wouldn't be easy. Long distance never was. They'd have to navigate schedules and time zones and a daughter who came first and a company that demanded everything. But they'd also have each other. And this time, they were going in with eyes wide open, no illusions about fairy tales or perfect endings. Just two people who'd found something rare and worth fighting for. And that, Ethan thought as Victoria fell asleep on his shoulder in the early morning hours, was more than most people ever got. It was enough. It was everything. The morning after Chicago, Ethan woke up with Victoria's head on his shoulder and sunlight streaming through the hotel curtains. For a moment he thought he was dreaming. Then she stirred, her eyes opening slowly, and smiled at him with a softness that made his chest ache. Hi, she whispered. Hi yourself. Did last night really happen? If it didn't, we're having the same dream. She laughed and kissed him, slow and sweet, like they had all the time in the world. They didn't, of course. His flight back to Denver left in 6 hours. Her meeting started in 3. But for this stolen moment, they pretended otherwise. Over room service coffee that neither of them could afford to linger over, they made their plan. Victoria would handle the board, make it clear that her personal life was no longer up for discussion. Ethan would talk to Mia, make sure she understood what this meant, what it would look like. They'd take it slow, be smart. But they wouldn't hide. "I'm going to tell Richard myself," Victoria said, her jaw set, "before he hears it from someone else." "That's a bad idea." "Probably, but I want to see his face when I do it." Ethan couldn't help but smile. This was the Victoria he'd fallen for, fierce and uncompromising when it came to the things that mattered. They parted at the elevator, a quick kiss that promised more. Then Ethan went back to his room, packed his bag, and flew home to tell his daughter that their lives were about to get complicated again. Mia was waiting when he walked through the door that evening, homework spread across the kitchen table, but clearly forgotten. "How was Chicago?" she asked, too casual. "Good. Productive." "Just productive?" He set down his bag and sat across from her. "I saw Victoria." Mia's eyes went wide. "And?" "And we talked. About us. About trying again." "Yes!" Mia jumped up so fast her chair fell over. "I knew it! I knew you guys would figure it out." "Hey, slow down. It's complicated, kiddo. She's still in the city. We're here. It's going to be hard." "I don't care. You love her and she loves you, and that's what matters." Mia threw her arms around him. "When can I see her?" "Soon. She wants to come visit next weekend, if that's okay with you." "Okay with me. Dad, I've been waiting for this since we left." Her joy was infectious. Ethan hugged her tight, grateful for this person who'd somehow ended up wiser than him. "There's going to be a tension," he warned. "People might talk, write things. It might affect you at school." Mia pulled back, her expression serious. "Let them talk. You taught me that what other people think doesn't matter as much as what's true. And the truth is, Victoria makes you happy. That's enough for me." "When did you grow up?" "About 3 years ago. You were too busy working to notice." He laughed and pulled her back into the hug. "I love you, kid." "Love you too, Dad. Now call her and tell her to come this weekend. I want to show her my new drawings." Meanwhile, Victoria was preparing for a different kind of conversation. She called an emergency board meeting for Monday morning. Richard showed up smirking, clearly thinking this was another attack he could deflect. The other board members looked wary, tired of the internal politics that had plagued the company for months. Victoria stood at the head of the table, poised and professional, but there was steel in her voice. "I've called this meeting to address the concerns that have been raised about my personal life and its impact on this company," she began. "Some of you have questioned my judgment, my focus, my ability to lead while maintaining a relationship." Richard leaned back in his chair, arms crossed, Victoria's expression firmly in place. "I want to be clear," Victoria continued. "My personal life is my own. But since you've made it company business, let me give you the facts. The Parker program, which several of you opposed, is now operating in 15 states. Employee retention is up 32%. Our reputation as an employer has never been stronger. Recruitment costs are down. Productivity is up. By every measurable metric, this company is thriving." She placed a stack of reports on the table. "These are the numbers, not speculation, not gossip, facts. And they show that my personal relationship has not compromised my professional performance. If anything, it's made me a better leader because it reminded me what we're actually fighting for. People, families, lives." Richard's smile faltered. "Now," Victoria said, her voice dropping to something colder, "I know that some of you would prefer I remain conveniently unattached, that I sacrifice my happiness for optics. But I'm not interested in performing the role of the lonely CEO for your comfort." She looked directly at Richard. "Ethan Parker and I are together. We're making it work despite the distance. And if that makes some of you uncomfortable, I suggest you examine why someone else's happiness threatens you so much." Richard finally spoke, his voice tight. "This is about professionalism, Victoria. About maintaining boundaries." "Really?" "Because it seems to be about control. About you wanting to dictate every aspect of my life because you can't accept that my father chose me to run this company, not you." The room went silent. Several board members shifted uncomfortably. "You've been undermining me since he died," Victoria continued, her voice steady but lethal. Questioning every decision, spreading doubt, using my relationship as ammunition. But here's what you fail to understand. I'm not my father. I don't lead his way. I lead my way. And my way includes caring about the people who work here, including myself. She straightened, her eyes sweeping the room. So here's how this is going to work. You can accept that I'm capable of running this company while also having a personal life. Or you can vote to remove me. But if you choose the latter, know that I'll fight. And I'll make sure everyone knows exactly why you're doing it. Not because of performance, but because you're uncomfortable with a woman who refuses to be diminished. Richard stood abruptly. This is absurd, you're being emotional. No, Richard, I'm being honest. There's a difference. The vote was called, 8-3 in Victoria's favor. Richard stormed out, his face purple with rage. But Victoria had won. Go? Richard's probably plotting my go? Richard's probably plotting my murder. But the board backed me. You okay? I'm incredible. And she meant it. For the first time in months, she felt free. I'm coming to Denver on Friday. I can't wait until next weekend. Mia's going to lose her mind. Good. I've missed that kid almost as much as I've missed you. That Friday, Victoria landed in Denver at 6 p.m. Ethan and Mia picked her up from the airport, and the moment Mia saw her, she ran full speed and launched herself into Victoria's arms. You're here. You're actually here. Victoria laughed, spinning her around. I promised, didn't I? I have so much to show you, my new school, my drawings, the mountains, everything. I can't wait to see it all. Ethan hung back, watching them, his heart full. When Victoria finally set Mia down and looked at him, the expression on her face said everything words couldn't. They spent the weekend building a new normal. Victoria stayed in a hotel. Propriety still mattered with an 11-year-old watching, but she spent every waking hour with them. They hiked in the foothills, Mia leading the way and narrating every geological feature she'd learned about in science class. They visited Mia's school, where Victoria charmed the art teacher by genuinely appreciating Mia's portfolio. They cooked dinner together in Ethan's small kitchen, laughing when Victoria nearly set off the smoke alarm trying to make grilled cheese. I thought you learned to cook, Ethan teased. I learned to make chicken parmesan. Apparently those skills don't transfer to sandwiches. Sunday evening came too fast. Victoria had to fly back for meetings Monday morning. They stood in the airport terminal, Mia between them, no one wanting to say goodbye. This is going to work, Victoria said, as much to herself as to them. We'll make it work. I know, Ethan said, squeezing her hand. 2 weeks until I can come back. That's not too long. It's forever, Mia moaned. Victoria knelt down, eye level with her. Then we'll talk every day. FaceTime after school. You can show me your drawings. Deal? Deal. They hugged, and then Victoria stood and kissed Ethan, not caring who saw. I love you, she said. I love you too. Now go be a CEO. Yes, sir. She walked toward security, turning back twice to wave. Ethan and Mia waved back until she disappeared from view. Dad? Mia said quietly. Yeah, baby? She's going to move here eventually, isn't she? Ethan looked down at his daughter. Is that what you want? I want you to be happy, both of you, and you're happier together. It might take time. Her whole life is in the city. But her heart is here. Ethan pulled her close. When did you become such a romantic? I've always been a romantic. You just never noticed because you were being practical. The weeks that followed fell into a rhythm. Victoria came to Denver twice a month. Ethan and Mia visited the city on long weekends. They FaceTimed every night, sometimes just sitting in comfortable silence while Victoria worked, and Ethan helped Mia with homework. It wasn't perfect. There were missed calls and canceled plans and moments of loneliness that cut deep, but it was real, and it was theirs. 3 months in, Morrison Industries offered Ethan a promotion, Director of Employee Relations for their entire Western region. More money, more responsibility, more travel. It would mean less time with Mia, less time for Victoria, more complications. He almost turned it down. Take it, Victoria said when he told her. I can't. It's too much. It's your career. You've earned this. But Mia, we'll be proud of you. We'll figure out the schedule. We always do. So he took it. And Victoria was right. Mia was proud. She started telling people at school that her dad was important, which made him uncomfortable and touched in equal measure. But the travel wore on him. Denver to Seattle, Denver to Portland, Denver to San Francisco. Always coming home exhausted, trying to be present for Mia, trying to save energy for his calls with Victoria. One night in April, after a particularly brutal week, he came home to find Victoria sitting on his couch. "What are you doing here?" he asked, stunned. "You weren't supposed to come until next week." "I had a thought," she said. "Okay. What if I moved here?" Ethan froze. "What?" "I've been thinking about it for a while. I can run Langford Dynamics from anywhere. Most of my job is calls and emails anyway. I'd have to go back to the city once a month for board meetings, but otherwise..." She stood, nervous energy radiating off her. "I could be here, with you, with Mia, full time." "Victoria, you can't just uproot your entire life." "Why not? You did." "That was different." "How?" "Because I was running towards something better. You'd be giving up everything you've built." "No." She crossed to him, taking his hands. "I'd be choosing what matters. The company will survive without me being there every second. It might even thrive. But us? We need this. I need this." "What about Richard? The board?" "Richard resigned last month. Took a position at a competitor. The board's stable. My CFO can handle day-to-day operations. And honestly," she smiled, "I'm tired of fighting for a building. I want to fight for a life." Ethan's throat closed. "You're serious?" "Completely. I've already started looking at houses. Nothing crazy. Just something with enough room for the three of us. And maybe an office for me. And a studio for Mia because that girl is going to be a famous architect someday." "The three of us?" Victoria's expression shifted, vulnerable suddenly. "If that's what you want, I know it's fast, I know it's a lot. But I'm tired of doing this halfway. I want to wake up next to you. I want to have breakfast with Mia. I want to be part of your lives for real, not just on weekends and phone calls. What if it doesn't work? What if you hate it here? Then we'll figure it out, together. That's what we do, right? We figure it out." Ethan pulled her into his arms, holding her tight. "You're sure?" "I've never been more sure of anything." "Then yeah. Move here. Move in. Let's do this." Victoria laughed, the sound bright and free. "Really?" "Really. On one condition." "What?" "We tell Mia together, and if she's not okay with it, she will be. That kid has been planning this since Chicago." She was right. When they told Mia that night, her reaction was to throw her arms in the air and shout, "Finally! I thought you guys would never figure it out." "You knew?" Ethan asked. "Dad, I'm 11, not stupid. I've been leaving real estate magazines around the house for Victoria to see." Victoria laughed so hard she cried. The next month was chaos. Victoria hired a management team in the city, restructured her role to be mostly remote, and put her mansion on the market. She found a house in Denver, not a mansion, just a warm, beautiful home in a neighborhood with good schools and a park nearby. She packed up her life, donated half of it, and moved across the country with the kind of efficiency that had made her a successful CEO. Mia helped her unpack, claiming the studio space Victoria had designed for her and immediately filling it with drawings and art supplies. Ethan moved his and Mia's things over gradually, merging their small life with Victoria's larger one until it all just fit. The first night they all slept under the same roof, Ethan lay in bed next to Victoria, listening to Mia singing down the hall while she arranged her art supplies. "This is real," he said quietly. "This is real," Victoria confirmed. "I keep waiting for something to go wrong. Maybe nothing will. Maybe we've had our share of wrong and now we get to have right. I love you." "I love you too, both of you, my whole unexpected family." They fell asleep tangled together, and for the first time in years, Ethan didn't dream about rain or headlights or choices that haunted him. He just slept, deep and peaceful and home. 6 months later, Victoria stood in front of a crowd of 300 people at the National Business Leadership Conference. She'd been invited to give the keynote on transformative leadership, and she'd spent weeks preparing her speech. But standing at that podium, looking out at faces hungry for wisdom about success and strategy, she found herself going off script. "A year ago," she began, "I was drowning. Not metaphorically. Actually drowning. I'd lost my father. I was running a company I wasn't sure I could lead. I was so focused on being strong that I forgot how to be human. The room was silent, attentive. Then someone saved my life. Not just physically, though he did that too, but he saved me from the person I was becoming. He reminded me that success without connection is just expensive loneliness, that power without purpose is just noise. She clicked to the next slide. Instead of graphs or data, it showed a photo, her, Ethan, and Mia at a park in Denver, all three of them laughing at something Mia had said. "This is my family," Victoria continued. "Unconventional, unexpected. The man in this photo worked maintenance at my company. He had every reason to ignore me when he found me drunk and stumbling into traffic one rainy night. But he didn't. He stopped. He helped. He changed everything." She could see people leaning forward now, engaged. And I learned something crucial. The most important leadership decision I ever made wasn't a business strategy or a corporate initiative. It was choosing to be vulnerable, to admit I needed help, to let someone in who saw past the title and the money to the person underneath. She paused, emotion threatening to crack her voice. I used to think success meant sacrifice, that you had to give up happiness to achieve greatness. But that's not true. Real success is building a life you don't want to escape from. It's surrounding yourself with people who make you better. It's knowing that at the end of the day, you're going home to something that matters more than your job title. She clicked to the final slide, the Parker Program logo now operating in 32 states. This program exists because one person showed me what kindness looks like when it costs you something. It's helped thousands of families, changed thousands of lives. And it started with one choice on one rainy night to stop and help a stranger. She looked directly into the audience. So my message to you is this. Don't wait for the perfect moment to be human. Don't sacrifice the things that matter for the things that don't. And if someone reaches out their hand to pull you from the darkness, take it. Even if, especially if, they're not someone you'd expect. The applause was thunderous, but Victoria barely heard it. Because in the front row, Ethan sat with Mia beside him, both of them beaming with pride. After her speech, reporters swarmed her. They wanted to know about the program, about her company, about the man in the photo. Victoria answered patiently, honestly, no longer caring about optics or reputation. She just told the truth. That night, back in Denver, they celebrated at their favorite diner. Nothing fancy, just burgers and milkshakes and Mia's endless commentary on everything. "You were amazing, Victoria," Mia said, like movie amazing. "Thank you, sweetheart. Are you going to write a book? You should write a book. I'd read it. Maybe someday. You should call it How My Dad Saved a CEO and Also My Life Got Really Good." Ethan laughed. "That's a terrible title." "It's accurate, though." Victoria reached across the table, taking both their hands. "You know what I'm grateful for?" "What?" they said in unison. "That I was lost enough to be found. That Ethan was brave enough to stop. That you, Mia, were generous enough to share your dad. And that somehow, against all logic, we became a family." "Of course we're a family," Mia said matter-of-factly. "That's what happens when people love each other. They become family." "When did you get so wise?" Victoria asked. "I've always been wise. You guys are just catching up." They laughed, and it echoed through the diner, drawing smiles from strangers who didn't know their story but could feel their joy. Later, after Mia went to bed, Ethan and Victoria sat on the back porch of their home, watching stars appear in the Colorado sky. "Do you ever think about that night?" Ethan asked. "The rain, the truck, how close it came." "Every day," Victoria admitted, "but not with fear anymore, with gratitude." "For what?" "For being broken enough that I needed saving, for you being there, for every choice that led us here." Ethan pulled her closer. "I used to think I was just a guy who worked 2 jobs and tried to be a good dad, that I didn't matter much in the grand scheme of things. And now? Now I know that one choice can change everything, that stopping for someone who needs help isn't just the right thing, it's the thing that saves you both." Victoria kissed him, soft and sweet and full of promise. "I love you, Ethan Parker." "I love you too, Victoria Langford." "Actually," she said, pulling back with a shy smile, "I've been thinking. What would you say to Victoria Parker?" His heart stopped. "Are you asking you to marry me?" "Yes. I know it's unconventional. I know I'm supposed to wait for you to ask, but I've never been very good at waiting for things I want." Ethan laughed, his eyes burning. "You're serious?" "Completely. I want to be your wife, Mia's stepmom. I want it official and permanent and real." "Then yes, absolutely yes." They kissed again, longer this time, sealing the promise. Inside the house, Mia was supposed to be asleep, but she'd been watching from her bedroom window, and when she saw them embrace, she smiled and went back to her sketchbook. She drew a new building, taller than the others, stronger, with 3 figures standing at the entrance, flowers growing up every wall, reaching toward an impossible sky that suddenly didn't seem impossible at all. At the bottom, she wrote, "Second chances start here." And she was right, because sometimes the biggest transformations don't begin with power or position or perfect planning. They begin with a choice to stop when everyone else drives by, with kindness when no one's watching, with love when it doesn't make sense. They begin with a single father who sees someone drowning and decides to pull them from the darkness. Not because it's easy, not because it's convenient, but because it's right. And in doing so, he doesn't just save her life, he changes it. He changes both their lives, because that's what love does. It transforms. It rebuilds. It makes the impossible real. One rainy night at a time, one choice at a time, one heart at a time. Until what was broken becomes whole. Until what was lost becomes found. Until what was alone becomes family. And that, Ethan thought as he held Victoria under the stars while their daughter dreamed inside their home, was the only ending that ever really mattered. Not perfect, but real. Not easy, but worth it. Not what he'd expected, but exactly what they all needed. A second chance. A new beginning. A life built on the foundation of one simple truth, that the best things in life happen when you choose to stop, to help, to love. Even when the world tells you to keep driving, especially then.